Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, our September meeting is now in order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence.
Take a moment to remember the 8 firefighters and 10 police officers that passed since our last board meeting.
Thank you. You may be seated. Okay, I think we have a full agenda today, and we're going to start off, Chief, with a presentation of awards and staff recognition.
Yes.
So with that, I think you're going to run that one.
All right. I think you are correct. So tonight rounds out for us here internally, it's our management team round out. You know, we're the completion of the changing of the guard, if you will. And the gentleman we're pinning tonight, Jeff Wassel, needs no introduction. You know him from all his hard work in many different facets of the organization, and you know, you see him frequently as representing our honor guard. But Jeff's been with us since July of '97. He was hired as a volunteer, and in '99 promoted to a full-time firefighter. Got his paramedic in 2000, fire engineer in 2001, captain in 2007, and I'm proud to be a part of this ceremony, pinning him for battalion chief. He's going to do a great job, and he's already hit the ground running with the other 2 new battalion chiefs, and they're coming up with a plan to take over the world, or not. But you know, Jeff's got numerous citations over the years. 2014 unit citation, same in 2015 and 2020. Outstanding Citizen Community Award in 2021, and then another unit citation in 2022. And he's got a bachelor's degree from Northern Arizona, and I think he just traded a lot of hard work for the degree. I'm not sure how much classwork he did, but is that accurate?
I never opened the book.
Yeah. And Jeff has been in Sedona for years, and I'm proud to give his wife his badge to stab him in the chest. So.
All right. Oh, hey. Oh, my gosh. First dent. I know. They used to break the tile when they hit the deck. Not anymore, huh? All right. Hey.
Yes.
I just want to thank everyone for the opportunity, being able to be in the battalion chief role since June, moving up for Chief Cochran while he was injured. It's been a true honor working with the chiefs and just what system, being in a new role. I've been thankful for all the help. So thanks once again.
Congratulations.
Welcome, please.
Congratulations.
Jeff, your guests that you have here this evening?
I have my mom and dad, Alan Shirley, that's all right, and my wife Michelle, who of course likes to imagine.
Thank you all for coming. Well, on behalf of the board, quite proud of you. I know I've watched you since about, 2017, 2016 in there, and see you move right along. Getting to the position of battalion chief, you are now into management and no longer one of the true worker bees, if you will, but management really holding true to the policies and procedures of what your boss are creating. A bit of a change. So congratulations. We look forward to your leadership for those that you're in charge of. and, hopefully good things will come. So congratulations. All right. At this time, we'll take a 5-minute recess. That way, if they take pictures with perhaps the chief or other members of the upper staff here, and then we will reconvene. All right. Okay, so we are back in session here after a brief recess, which the promotion was well deserved. Next up on the agenda is the possible vote to go into executive session for personnel matters, update fire chief's evaluation, and the new collaborative evaluation process pursuant to ARS 38431.03A1, and legal advice for the same pursuant to ARS 31431.03A3. So with that, that is the motion that I just read. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, we are now in executive session to return rather briefly. Result of executive session, discussions as described, I move to approve the chief's evaluation with the score as described in executive session to be included into his personal file. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved. Also, a consensus into the board has agreed to meet quarterly for our new evaluation process for a date that is to coincide with the chief's anniversary date on a quarterly basis, and for the chief to work with staff in coordinating that that first quarter date for the collaborative evaluation process. Okay, so that is that. With that said, the next item on the agenda. Do we have any speakers from the public?
Nobody.
Okay. Our consent agenda consists of the August 15, 2023 regular and executive session meeting minutes. I move to have those approved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Next up on the agenda is our financial report and update from our Director of Finance in place. You got it. Have at it.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, in your board packet, you will have your August 2023 financials. I'll go through the month and then the year-to-date numbers. Tax levy revenue for the month of August, we ended at $33,717, which is just shy of the budget. So we're doing well there for the month of August. Non-tax levy revenue, we are at $292,876, which is short from the budget. Most of that by $100,000. Most of that is driven by our wildland deployments. We have not had the revenue come through yet for wildland and those deployment costs, which is about $125,000 for the month. We are seeing some increase in our interest earnings from our budget of about $38,000. That's just going back to really managing our cash and being able to keep that in the county accounts as much as possible that have higher interest rates for the organization. And then ambulance revenue is right on budget. Personnel costs for the month of August were $1.2 million, which is under budget by $167,000, and that is predominantly related to those wildland wages for deployments as well. The rest of the groups are pretty well right on budget. Vehicle and equipment is over budget by about $9,000, and that's really related to higher fuel costs for the month of August, as well as we had some maintenance, increase in maintenance costs. And then managerial costs is under budget by about $15,000, and that is also related to wildland deployment costs. So the less we go out on wildland, our travel costs to support those wildland deployments fall into that managerial category, and we just haven't had those yet. Fiscal year to date, So we've got 2 months so far for the fiscal year. So revenue, we are at $738,924, which is under budget by $190,000. Tax revenue for the year-to-date amount, is about $41,000 off of budget. That's really nothing to be too concerned about, especially just having the 2 months of the year so far. How we budget that is we look at what we historically over the last 3 years have collected each month, and that's how we kind of track it. So that just means that we're collecting a little bit slower than we have over the last 3 months, for property tax. And then our wildland deployment, is under budget by about $250,000. Interest income, as I mentioned in the August numbers, was about 38, it's at 82 for the fiscal year to date. And then ambulance, we are over budget by about $25,000 on revenue. Total expenditures are $3.6 million, which is under budget by about $482,000. And you could look across the board to see kind of the breakout of that. Again, the big drivers in there are the personnel costs being under budget by about $405,000. That's related to our wildland wages and open positions. And then our other big one is managerial, again, that's related to the timing of our wildland and not having those deployment costs. Year-to-date expenses, as a percentage of revenue, we're at 16% of our budget, as a percentage of budget, we're at 16% so far spent, which is right in line with where we think we need to be, based off of where we're at in the year. Percentage of expenditures year-to-date, we're at 85% for personnel, 6% for operations, communications at 5%, and 4% at managerial. As we get through the year, as time progresses, you'll start to see those personnel costs be more aligned with what we historically see around that 80% mark, and have our managerial costs go back up and kind of even out. And then finally, our cash position. So we ended the month of August, we're at just shy of $12 million of cash, which is up about $1.5 million from this time last year, which is great. We are up in our fixed assets, our assets of about $731,000. As our liabilities are also up about $243,000. So that's a net overall cash position of the fund balance of up about $1.9 million year over year. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Do you have any questions?
I just have one. Recognizing that we're not getting the wildland revenues that we anticipated. If we continue, and on one hand, I think it's great, wonderful, we're not getting called, we're not having fire, we're not doing that. What's the total impact on us if we don't get any wildland revenue this year?
$100,000?
I think it's about $100,000, because the good thing about wildland, when we don't have the revenue, we also don't have the costs going out. So the net impact of the margin is about $150,000 that really goes to fund our capital. So
right, I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
I just was curious about the
About
impact.
$150,000 that would go to our capital that we wouldn't necessarily see.
Okay.
But the good news on top of that, and I don't know, I might be stealing anyone's thunder, I'm sorry, but we submitted our ARPA for COVID reimbursement earlier in August, and we actually just got that check. That's about $1 million that we just got from the state of Arizona.
So when that comes back, does that come back into our capital funding, or where does that go?
Right now, it's sitting in our general operations account, just so that we're keeping, the idea behind that is we'll put that and we'll use that to pay kind of our bills for the next couple of months, or about a month. And really that allows us to keep more money sitting at the county at that higher interest rate so that we can continue to see that interest income grow.
So we're just moving around, because we still have the carryover that we came up with due to our last budget.
Yes.
And our bills, if you will, are lower because we haven't had the deployments for wildland. And when do we expect the payments from the county start coming our way? Is that September or October?
Typically we start to see a little bit more in October timeframe, towards the end of September, October timeframe. October is a big month, and November are big months, and then we'll wait, and then we'll see another batch in April and May.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you for your accounting on our finances. And so, This is August. So I move to approve the financial report as presented for the August financials for 2023. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Say aye. Any opposed? Financial reports for August of 2023 are approved as presented. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next item on the agenda is our staff items, basically the chief's report. So Chief Mazulis, floor is yours.
Hey, good afternoon once again. Excuse me. We'll start with Heidi Robinson.
All right, members of the board, Chairman, sorry, pardon, I have a little bit of a cold, so I hope you all can hear me okay. Just a quick update on the items that we've been working on in administration, and they're largely financial. So we're in audit prep. So I'll start at the bottom of the list and go up. It's pre-audit now, and so it's kind of cleaning up the end of last fiscal year. We have everything set up for the new fiscal year, and it's the separation between the two of those, getting all of our files prepared for our audit that will usually happen at the end of October, beginning of November. We're not in budget season, we're in audit season, and so we're helping Sarah and JVG prepare for that. So getting those files all cleaned up. Looking at that, I'll jump back to the top, working also closely with Sarah and Gabe to update our financial policies and procedures. So we've had some change in staff in both of our organizations, and you're aware of the ones here in administration. And just looking through all the job responsibilities, the tasks that needed to be attended to, and make sure that each one is assigned, to make sure we all are on the same page of who it's assigned to, and making sure that it's getting accomplished in the most efficient way. We've noted a few tweaks already today, and as we continue through that process, looking at all of those procedures, the processes, and how they support and are supported by the policy. So making those updates, a good chunk of it was done in August, and then it's a continuing process so we can keep improving that. And then Stephanie at reception and Branda and payroll completed their task books. So Chief Mazulis has been talking about them for some time. Training division is also updating them operationally, and we're beginning them here in administration. So a little bit of a foreign concept to those of us who don't have an operational background, but we're building the essentially a training manual, but then with a task book checklist so that it is the same interoperationally. So whether you're in administration or in operations, there's a succession planning and the same kind of a task book procedure to go through that process. The first two of them are done and sitting with the chief for his approval, and that's an ongoing process as well. So since the training division is going to do quarterly updates on those, we'll be looking at them, refining them, and making sure that they're task ready for the next employee. And that's my very quick administrative update. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I've got one question. Is over the years, our audits have seemed to identify fewer and fewer recommendations. Are we at a point where hopefully won't have any recommendations, or they're just so few that we just knock them out or make the adjustment accordingly?
I'll have Sarah answer after I just addressed that's one of the reasons why we switched to the other audit firm, is why we recommended that review to go to RFP for another audit firm, because a tendency to continue to see the same things and getting fresh eyes on an audit. It's not to catch things going wrong. We know that we're a solid organization. We have excellent procedures and policies in place. And as finance becomes more refined, as technology improves, there's different ways that there could be a finding. And a finding isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just an acknowledgement of, this is an area that you could improve, and we're all about continual improvement. So a finding is helping. We're glad that we have fewer, so that we've taken the recommendations, we apply them, and then we don't see them the following year. But then they have the bandwidth to look for something different as well, of how can you improve another process. So we should probably never get to the point, if we're getting to the point where there's no findings on our audit, we probably need to look at another audit firm, because they might have just gotten into a routine. So, Sarah, feel free to add.
No, I think Heidi, you covered it pretty well. I will caution the board that with this audit this year, as I mentioned, we got this $1 million for ARPA. That does put us in a category that needs what's called a single audit. If we receive $750,000 or more from the government, we are required to do what's called a single audit. That is much more scrutinized at a very detailed level, and there can be sometimes they're at a different level of audit that we have to make sure that we're complying with. And sometimes when we get to that single audit, if you've never done a single audit before, it's been a long time since you've done a single audit, that might have some findings. So while it's great that we're not having findings, we want to make sure that we are, the auditors are making recommendations for us. But I will caution the board that there could be some, as we go to this new, doing the single audit this year for ARPA, that we might have a couple more findings then.
Okay, super.
The price of $1 million.
Yes, just about, yeah.
$1 findings.
I will say, keep it to $750 on the low.
That's what I was thinking too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Chief?
All right, turn it over to operations.
Hello. All right, so significant events. I'm gonna be some other stuff I want to talk a little bit deeper about, so I'm gonna kind of scoot through some of this first part. One of the major significant event I think this month was that the individual that I spoke about last board meeting that had led to us having over 300 scene calls and adjustments and stuff to staffing has passed in her home. I'm surrounded by people that loved her, and so that particular situation, while it's not static yet, it's less dynamic than it was before. And kudos to the crews, all the personnel that responded there, showed compassion, showed patience as we worked through a situation that required multiple levels of government intervention to be able to move through it. I think at the end, I'm confident that based on the work and stuff that was done by the rest of the crews out in the field, that person was treated in a respectful manner for the balance of their life. And I think that without them, that may not have been the case. So, big deal. Talking about all hazards, so wildfires, if you want to look at it this way, right now we're at about less than 50% of the average over the last 10 years. And the bad thing is that if you look over history, when you have a lower than average year, fine fuels accumulate and you tend to have a much higher than normal year. And we still haven't had California yet. What's interesting is if you look north of the border, the Canadian border, then Ed's wife's border, then they have burned 4 times as many acres that we have in our worst year ever in the United States. And places like the Northwest Territories, at one time, they had better than 50% of their population displaced. And there's still fires that are burning up there. And what's interesting is that those places, the power line corridors that bring power to these small communities, lots of them have been just completely destroyed. They're all above ground power. And now they're racing against, talk about going from fires to floods, they're racing against winter time to get power restored to the large communities. I mean, large 20, 30,000 home communities from outside of the local area. So, yeah, certainly a complex situation there. In the Western United States, everything around wildfire right now has kind of died down a little bit. There's still some active fires in Northern California, Oregon, and Washington, but above normal precipitation from Hurricane Hillary, that was called the hurricane that came through here, all the way up into Montana. I happened to be on a fire in Montana when that came through, and they had more rain than they have in the month of August in one day, and we had 3 days like that. So that pretty much shut everything down there. So we're looking pretty good. Drought index across Arizona is looking very good. The emerging issues, the main emerging issue that something that we are going to have a pretty clear path forward on in the next month, between this board meeting and the next meeting, is the placement of our new hires. So, since, Chief Missoula said it last time, but it was 21 or 2001, 2002, maybe where we've added that percentage of our workforce. And so it's already started some great dialogue with the division chiefs and with the battalion chiefs about how we do that well. You know, so making sure that you have kind of a tiered group of firefighters on there. So if you have 1 0 to 6 monther, and you happen to have a 6 to 12 monther, you better have somebody that's got, you know, some whiskers. And making sure that we balance that across the organization like that. So why that's an emerging issue is in normal, less dynamic times, we allow people to bid for stations and they can stay relatively static. As we approach this scenario, you know, we are going to prioritize making sure that we can provide excellent customer service and we can take care of make sure that we do it in a safe manner and make sure that we provide a positive learning environment. There's people, because Shubair will tell you about the work he's doing to enhance their learning environment, and then you'd have a good place to be able to do that. So that will move some cheese. If you've ever read that old book about, you know, moving people's cheese. So that's going to be a challenge. People are going to have to adapt to it, deal with it. We'll, of course, do it with empathy and grace, but it's hard to imagine that it's not going to have to happen when you add 10 people to a 80-person agency in that short of time. Human resources. So part of that is staffing. Part of that was I was going to give Sarah a big shout out because between her and Kiona, I'm sure others were involved as well, making sure that they got the right paperwork in for that, for the check that makes us get an audit, which, by the way, when we were looking for the money, you never said anything about the fact that we had to get like a more comprehensive audit if we got all that was coming to us. So noted. A lot of what's been filling my days right now has been either writing questions for evaluations or anchors for the Likert scales or dealing with other components of evaluation. So we got done with the fire inspector hiring, narrowed down to one potential candidate, and I'll let Chief Missoula talk about that part. And then telecom is taking place the day after tomorrow, where we have 4 personnel coming in here. So I have some work to do tomorrow to finish that up, and then we do have one ongoing investigation. And the only time we do an investigation, it's 40, 60 hours at least, just to make sure you go through everything, give everybody the due process, and make sure that you're being considerate of everything. So, you know, once they have that conversation, the first thing is, oh yeah, we better letter them, you know, better make somebody aware that what's going on. Yeah, you can just count on a week and a half just going away. I think that's, you know, something that's probably common everywhere. But with GIS, you want to talk about the dashboards too?
No,
You know, let Matt talk about them, huh?
hey, don't have to talk about it.
I don't. Well, Matt, what is this thing up here? Why don't you come up here on the microphone and explain to the board what that deal is behind Mr. Whittington? Josh left, didn't he?
Yeah, Josh, Brian Espiau, and I have been working to roll out the First Arriving dashboards. First Arriving is a company that builds these tools for first responders and other companies. We have tied a number of our data sources, ESO, Spillman, our CAD, to the First Arriving system, as well as our social media feeds, weather data, so that there's dynamic data that's being presented at each station. They're going to be launched in each living quarters and in each bay. Right now we have 5 up and running. We have a desktop license assigned for troubleshooting and technical development. We have 2 here. We have this display in the multipurpose room, and we have 1 in the mail room next door. And then we have the 2 installed at Station 5 operational, sort of Brian's guinea pig displays where we've been testing ideas and playing with data. We also have the ability to create custom presentations using Google Slides and Google Sheets that are integrated with the First Arriving solution. So it's been kind of a slow rollout, but we have, over the next 2-3 weeks, we anticipate all 19 will be operational and turned on and constantly displaying information. And happy to entertain questions if you have any. Otherwise, I would just encourage you to stop and take a look and see what they have.
Will you be able to tell what response times are and trends on response times and out-the-door times and stuff when it's all done?
That's the goal. Yeah, we have a slide on there right now that we're not really too satisfied with. It breaks down average response time by A shift, B shift, C shift, and then it also displays a gauge that tells percent of compliance with a certain metric. We have not established that metric. It's either a 90-second or a 2-minute goal that First Arriving has used with other districts. So at this time, that's what that graphic is showing, and we have tickets in with First Arriving developers to customize those slides and gear them more towards what we show with custom ESO reports. So I don't know what the final outcome of that will be yet, but that is something Brian and I are actively working on.
On one of the slides, it showed a static picture of a live image, I guess, looked like of the street from a cam.
Yep.
Is that going to be a live picture so that they can see cars moving to assist them in knowing what they are about to face as they respond from quarters? If they're going in that direction.
So that's a good question. That is both dynamic and static. So First Arriving is dynamically connected to AZDOT traffic feeds. So whatever AZDOT provides publicly, we can use. And at this time, their traffic cameras, I believe, update every 5 minutes. So we're only as good as what data we can get. Now, if they make a change or they upgrade camera systems or something like that, then we'll see that change on our end. But at this time, those are giving crews a sense of how much traffic is on the road, not necessarily live feed.
Okay.
So, still useful, but one of the maps on there does tie into a Google map that shows relative traffic. So, you know, if there's like a backlog on the hill, you'd see the little road turn red.
Right.
So again, there's a second way of kind of gauging how busy the roads are. But yeah, we're kind of exploring new things to add. And I did throw a slide on at the end with a QR code to a feedback survey. So as folks, yourselves, crew, use this tool and see it, you can provide feedback directly to me. I can kind of take it up the chain, bounce ideas around, you know, see what ideas are worth pursuing, which ones aren't going to work. And it'll grow and evolve over time. So, yeah, and they're just, as an example, this is a Google slide that we put together, and it links to our annual report. We're going to be using a lot of QR codes. We can display these slides anywhere from 10 seconds to 45 seconds. Sometimes you just need more than that to actually read what you're trying to get across. And in those cases, we'll provide some context, we provide a QR code, give people the ability to go dig a little deeper. These will just cycle over and over. You know, I'm using it on this slide as a way of saying, hey, we got this new procedure, here's a tool we're giving you to use it. Like what is the point? What are we trying to do? Why are we trying to do it? And how do we do it? The next slide is an IT slide where we're just relaying some changes to our antivirus software so folks know if they see a change on their computer, what's going on, build some awareness. So yeah. Other questions? This is going to grow. It'll get better. It'll improve. But overall, it's just a way for us to communicate better and to show a lot of the data that we've been collecting and working on.
And the intent of this whole thing is to keep our membership better informed in-house.
Yeah.
No intent to go outside.
No, there had been discussion of putting one over in dispatch if they have a benefit to be realized there. We've talked with and shown this product to our friends over at dispatch, and they're discussing with other groups they work with because they see benefit to all the fire and police in the area to developing something like this. But it'd be $599 a year for them to have a license and to have one of these in dispatch. And you know, we planted the seed. Think about if that's something that's worth having, and then we would take it from there. I don't know if that'd be on us or on them, but I'm not opposed to sharing this. But those are the only ones I think that we would share it with. There will be a display in the lobby, so like if folks are coming in to interview or they're waiting to meet with somebody in the lobby, there will be a public-friendly version of this without any critical incident data, nothing sensitive. But you get a sense of like, hey, we're doing these cool things with data, makes us look good, it's an easy win.
Some other little things with it is, say Station One gets a call right now, their screen goes to the software we use for dispatch alerting, and it routes their call, and then it shows them a street view of the building they're going to, and then it has a out-the-door timer. So as they're transitioning to the truck, they already have a quick look at, okay, that's where we're going. And then, the other thing is like, I'll have a Google slide on here so I can have a weekly update from me. And then the other divisions will have a pertinent information, and a bunch of reasons why this is beneficial for us. But the biggest one is like, oh, I didn't see that email. You know, well, if it's important to operations or the organization, then it'll be up for a week-long live feed, so people, okay, see what's going on. And then you can see your staffing. Then it's gonna get into some of our internal data metrics now.
Yeah, right now we show today's staffing, so you know who's on and who's not. We are trying to solve a little mystery on the back end that allows for you to see tomorrow's staffing as well, to help handle like shift transitions. In this case, we have open incident reports that captains or whoever else need to go in and complete. It's a way, you know, it's a visual reminder, hey, you gotta go do this. It will also, when we have NOAA weather alerts, like severe weather comes in, or maybe there's like a flash flood warning, that will pop up on the screen as well to notify folks. We have the ability to tie into stream gauges, so you can watch water levels rise in Oak Creek, plan for it. There's the mystery slide. I love the intent of the slide, but it's not immediately clear what it's displaying. So we're working on those things too, making sure that, you know, it's labeled or it's clear, so that like when you see a gauge, you know what the gauge is actually trying to depict. But basically all this is like we took stock slides and we're customizing them and making more useful for our needs.
So Brian Espy and I had long conversations about what the visual presentation information was to the board before, and also same way that folks have gotten it out in the field. And at the end of the day, what this is likely to show is it will show the turnout times, so the time from when the tones drop until they begin moving in the apparatus for your station, and then the average for all the other stations. And then it will show the same thing for your, you know, any other metrics we want. And that is because the goal is to drive the right behaviors, right? Get the right information for people so it drives the right behaviors. So if you see that last month, your crew at your station's turnout times were 5 seconds slower than they are this week, that's a win. So you're improving. And then if you see the relative to everybody else, and maybe that now you're getting closer to that average or you're getting below that. I mean, you guys know it, right? A lot of it's getting the right information out in front of folks and then letting that drive the performance. And I think the other part that, for me, when we did this is, what was cool is that I came to them with a problem and then backed up and let them go figure out a solution and a few different solutions for us to look at. Which is a good reminder that, you know, don't try to be too prescriptive when it comes to things, because I didn't know what existed out there and they would figure out. But when we're talking about a common operating picture, you know, data integration, information sharing, real-time monitoring, standardization, all that are key components of maintaining a common operating picture. So I feel like this is going to be a significant step towards us being able to maintain those. And it is a lot better to have everybody from the board down to the first tier firefighter knowing what the goals are and where we are relative to those goals, than having different people looking at different sets of data and then trying to figure out how those match up with what the other person is asking them to do.
A lot of slides that will get custom code. They'll be built to our liking over time, and then once they're the way we want them, we can leave them alone. They talk with other software and databases. And there's other stuff like Facebook posts or like Google Slides that the chief wants to do on a weekly basis. We can go and we can be hands-on with the displays. Yeah, it's a pretty versatile tool, and it's gonna get pretty useful.
Very impressive, really is.
That's like watching a news feed.
Yeah.
Is this 24, I must stop at 10 o'clock at night.
Oh, no.
Oh, it's,
No, they're just in common areas.
Yeah, it has a night mode, it's like a screen saver. But if you're at a station and you're asleep, you know, the screen's on and everything's there, but it will only scream at you when there's actually a call you have to respond to, unique to your station. So Station 5 won't have to get up at 3 in the morning because Station 1 got a call. It's smart enough to know that. But yeah, and we set those hours, I think like 9 PM to 6 AM or something, but that's flexible. The rest of the time, it'll just scroll. And the intent, yeah, you can sit there and you can watch this all the way through, like we are right now, or you can just kind of slide here and there as you're walking by. But throughout your shift, you will be exposed to a bunch of stuff, that would otherwise be lost in email or reports. And, you know, we're just trying to put more tools to this.
There's a little, but a very small amount of desire to not have it in above the dinner tables. And unfortunately, I sent these guys out there with pretty clear instructions about, hey, locate it where you can see it from the dining room table. And then, you know, it didn't match the feng shui of some of the stations, but they, so the bad on me for sending them out there to carry that water by themselves without making it pretty clear that wasn't really a negotiable. But now that is where they are. They're all in those common areas because that's where everybody spends their time. And you need to have that information there so you can passively absorb a lot of it and see it. And putting it in a separate room or someone has to go to look at it would have defeated the purpose. Yeah. That was it. That's the main thing I wanted to hit on with the rest of, my presentation. Because, yeah, these guys have done amazing work and I'm excited to see where it goes. And it will, I think when we're done, it will meet the board's desire to have that data near real time as we can possibly get it right now.
And the point you made, for all of our staff to glean the information we'll have contained in these slides, it's 7 or 8 different apps plus a MSN news feed, and it's exactly what you said. This is the SFD news feed for the day of the week, the month, and it's good. I'm excited about it.
End of report.
All right.
Yes, sir.
All right, so next we'll move on to community risk reduction, with Kirk Rydell. Dory, had surgery today, so she'll be out for a couple days.
Good evening. Thanks for having me back. Dory did text and say her surgery was well, and I don't know if she's home yet or not, but it was outpatient, so she's probably on her way if she's not there yet. So let's see what's been going on in community risk reduction. Been getting out to schools again. The charter schools have been reaching out to us, wanting us to come out and to bring the crews out, do a little pub ed stuff, and that's been going well. So in the picture there, ASHIC was out there with the engine, and that was at the charter school, Sedona Charter School off Katina. Don't have the same thing. Oh, you don't have the same thing, sorry. Everything's been picking up, a lot of plan reviews. We did have one investigation last month, and that was a barbecue that was left on all night at Casita out of Seven Canyons. Had a very good outcome. The only reason it did is it got so hot it melted the water line, the sink next to it, and kept it at check. It was on all night. And what came out of it too is the smoke detectors in both casitas did not go off. And that spurred to where I had them pull them. We sent them all back for recall, replace them all, and have the whole systems checked out. And also to put a timer on their barbecues. This won't happen again. So hopefully that all panned out. I need to check back on that to make sure they did it. Arizona Water's underground tank project. I reached out to John today to get a little more insight on that. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with it. Out of Chapel, in the Chapel area, right across from Mystic Hills. You'll see that construction site going on right there. They're going to put a 1.5 million gallon water tank underground to be buried completely. It's pre-stressed concrete tank. Didn't even know they were doing that, but they are. Gonna be pretty impressive. On top is gonna be a booster station with a 3,000 GPM fire flow. That's pretty impressive, and I did not know this, but they make variable drive pumps now. So they're smart pumps. If it only needs 1,000, it's only gonna pump 1,000. If it needs 3, it's gonna go full speed ahead. So it's pretty impressive. They're moving really forward. And just for knowledge on that, because I used to work there, there is no water storage from the bridge at Tlacopaki all the way to the Back Beyond. This will be the first storage tank on that side of town. And they've been trying to get this I was with them 20 years ago, and they were trying then to get this tank in, but kept getting shot down. So I'm glad they're moving forward. They anticipate blasting around the end of November. It's gonna be a 1.5 to 2 year project. So.
Did I hear correctly that they're gonna kind of camouflage or disguise the pump house as a single-family dwelling kind of look or something?
Yeah, it's gonna look like a house out there, pretty much. And then the tank's totally covered in 3 feet of dirt. You'll never see it.
How did they get it by the residents that were putting up a fight against it?
That I do not know.
Relentless pursuit.
Yeah, probably, if you wanna have water for the near future, we need to put this in. Because they can't just keep sending it from uptown all the way to the end of the road. They had to do something. Let's see, what else we got? Fire inspector. Were you gonna talk about our new,
Why don't you discuss it?
well, we just had we had an assessment center for a new fire inspector on Tuesday.
The second part was Tuesday.
Part 2, that was for the candidate that won the oral board portion of it, and it went really well. I believe we extended an offer, according to
Correct, we
Sedona.
extended an offer pending background checks and all the process.
I'm very much looking forward to have another person in the office with me to share the wealth. It's gonna be a good thing.
Is this all in-house, like a promotional position, or is this civilians that you're interviewing also, or?
We didn't have any interest from in-house, so we solicited externally. It was very strange, you know, the applications kind of ebbed and flowed in. And I think at one point we're at 6 or 7, and then the fire CRR world right now is ripe. And as fast as we get apps in, they would pick up a job somewhere else or another opportunity. And so we brought 2 candidates to the initial interview, and then from there we brought the candidate we made offer to a second assessment piece. And then as he stated, once the background checks are done, hopefully we'll onboard that person sometime mid-October. And I'm excited to share with you their background once we're cleared and they're onboarded, because more horsepower for Sedona Fire if everything works out.
What was your assessment center like, Kurt, that you did yesterday?
It actually went really well. It was very productive, and more, not so much just for to meet the candidate and see where he's at, but just like an overall work session for the whole department. We came with great ideas that we actually implemented right away, and worked out really well.
So essentially what we did is based on the background of the candidate and our past interactions with this candidate in different venues, it was decided that having him show us the basics was not needed because he teaches most of the classes. And so what we did is we brought in the current problems with CRR and scenario acted as if he was a current employee, and it was to have him engage in brainstorming how to solve our current issues. And so it was with our current staff. So it was a unique center or assessment piece, and all accounts it went really well.
Yeah, very well.
Basically, we got free consulting.
Yeah. All right, moving on, upcoming events, Fire Prevention Week's coming up next month, October 8th and 14th. And that is going to lead into, well, before we jump into this, I'm gonna do this first. So, upcoming events also, and it's not on here, is, on the 14th of October, the Sedona Airport is having their Wings and Wheels. And if you like cars, you like airplanes, come up to the airport, it'll be a good time. We're gonna be up there, we'll have our tent up there. I'm planning on hopefully having the truck up there for static and setting that up. That'd be good.
When is that?
That is the 14th of October, yeah, at the airport. And it's pretty much an all-day event. They bring in vintage planes, they'll have some war planes, all the locals that have classic cars and muscle cars, even newer cars, we'll have them up there parked. It's a pretty big deal.
Okay.
So, on to the safety message, and Chief Booth handed me this one, so I assume that's the one I'm gonna do. So since Fire Prevention Week, and it's gonna be cooking. So cooking in the kitchen. So U.S. fire departments respond to an estimated average of 172,900 home structure fires per year started by cooking activities in 2014 to 2018. These fires caused an average of 550 civilian deaths, 4,820 reported civilian fire injuries, and more than $1 billion in direct property damage per year. Home fires caused by cooking peaked at Thanksgiving and Christmas, probably due to the invention of the deep fried turkey. So probably had a lot to do with it. In 2018. Ranges of cooktops were involved in 61% of reported home cooking fires, 87% of cooking fire deaths, and 78% of cooking fire injuries. Households that use electric ranges have a higher risk of cooking fires and associated losses than those using gas ranges. I believe that's due to the accumulation of everything spilling over and not burning off until it just gets. Unattended cooking, leading cause of cooking fires and casualties. Clothing was the item first ignited in less than 1% of these fires, but clothing ignitions led to 8% of home cooking fire deaths. So wearing nightgowns that hang over, catch fire, happens. More than 1/4 of the people killed by cooking fires were sleeping at the time. More than half of the non-fatal injuries occurred when people tried to control the fires themselves. So, on with that. Cooking with caution, be on alert if you're sleepy or have consumed alcohol. Don't use the stove or stovetop. Stay in the kitchen while you are frying, boiling, grilling, or broiling food. If you leave the kitchen for even a short period of time, turn off the stove. If you're simmering, baking, or roasting food, check it regularly, remain in the home while food is cooking, and use a timer to remind you that you are cooking. Keep anything that can catch fire, oven mitts, wooden utensils, food, packaging, towels, or curtains away from your stovetop. If you have a small grease cooking fire and decide to fight it, on the stovetop, smother the flames by sliding a lid over the pan and turning off the burner. Leave the pan covered until it's completely cool. So I would suggest if you know you're gonna do some deep frying, have that lid readily available so you know where it's at. For an oven fire, turn off the heat, keep the door closed, and if you have any doubt, just get out. When you leave, close the door behind you, call 911. All I got for tonight. If there's any questions?
Questions for community risk reduction? I think we covered everything. Thank you. Chief?
All right, I am buzzed tonight. He is at a training, I failed to mention to him that there's a few mandatory trainings taking over EMS. And so he's now an infectious disease control expert, and he's getting some other classes. And that's really with EMS, as far as an update goes, our guys continue to get out the door and run calls, do a great job. Buzz has got his feet solidly under him, buttoning up some of the classes, and as I mentioned earlier, you know, if not daily, at least weekly, hey, what do I do with this? And he's doing great. Fleet, Mike's just been hammering. He's got the truck out of service, doing some extensive maintenance and keeping it going and just plugging along. We've had some conversations with him about fit in future and what's gonna allow our shop to be most efficient. And so there's getting some great feedback from Mike on that. And then training, I won't belabor it because Jordan will. And, Honor Guard, Honor Guard was busy last month, you know, if you were here, you saw some of our retirements. And then, last week, the IFF, the International Association of Firefighters, has a memorial wall in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And, Buzz and many other members of our Honor Guard joined a bunch of members from Verde Valley Fire and took part in the ceremony last week to put Tyrone Bell on the wall. He's the firefighter that died from COVID at Verde Valley Fire in 2021. So it was great to have our organization representing and honoring that member and his family. So it was good. And if there aren't any questions about Buzz's stuff, we'll move on to Jordan.
Very good. All right, Mr. Chair, Board, thank you for having me. I apologize for not being here last month, but, I listened to the board meeting and everything was conveyed as, I had hoped. So, as you're all aware, I was put into this position with a estimated 6-month job shadowing under the current training officer, which abruptly ended, with Training Officer Duran's departure. So that learning curve has sped up quite a bit for me. But I'm looking forward to the challenge. Within the last month, we'd actually just completed ahead of schedule, thanks to Miss Chris Ahern's hard work and dedication. So all of our operational and administrative training files are now electronic. So, close to or a little over 100 employees. She was able to scan all those in for us, all their training files, some of them 2 envelopes each for some people. A lot of work, and she was instrumental in helping me complete that task and doing it way ahead of schedule. So all of our training files are electronic, which allows the employees in ESO under the PM section to go in and look at all their training files to make sure everything's accurate, make sure everything's in there. And if they need it, they're able to extract that out without getting a hold of somebody in training to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, after hours. They're able to access that, pull it out of there, package that with, say, intent to test or promote with their letter of interest and submit that to HR now. So it really, utilizing technology, we're really streamlining that process. So now the accountability is on the employees. When they complete a task, a training, they'll be able to scan that in and add that to their training file and then keep a paper copy if they so choose. But all that has been moved out of the training office now. All the employees that have left, regardless of circumstance, we checked with the state with the help of Kim and Chris to make sure we're adhering to all the retention requirements for the state of Arizona for those training files, and we're making sure all those are met. With the help of Matt Spinelli and Brian Espiau, we anticipate utilizing technology once again and getting away from our old class and travel request form that's 20-plus years old here, an Excel document, and going to an electronic version that employees can fill out online. It's got additional forms if travel's needed, if lodging's needed, if per diem's needed. It'll open up a new form for those employees to capture that information, submit it to their immediate supervisor electronically. That supervisor can review it, approve or deny it. They approve it, it goes to the appropriate division. So getting away from inter-office mail, if they click suppression training, their supervisor approves it, it comes to me electronically. I can look at it with all the costs associated, approve or deny the request. Same for Chief Wachowski and EMS, Wildland Special Operations, that'll go to the appropriate division. With that, we anticipate being able to compile all that data at the end of the year. And, with Kirk Rydell, I can look exactly with Kirk and his request, see how much money we spent on Kirk for training, lodging, conferences, per diem, per employee, or per division, which is a great and valuable tool for budgeting moving forward. Be able to have that trend for that year and previous years once we get rolling with this to help the budgeting process be that much more efficient. So we anticipate that rolling out for the first of the year by the time we get it all done, utilizing one of our current software platforms but want to make sure that we have everything captured that we need to and anticipate needing in the future. The big one, so the new hire orientation, as Chief Mizoulis mentioned, almost adding 10% of our operational workforce with this new hire orientation. We anticipate that and have it scheduled to begin on October 16th. It's going to be a 3-week orientation. We did add an extra day in there to capture some needed information that we felt was missing from past orientations. It's a full 3 weeks. It's a lot of training. Restructured it to make it more efficient, where in years past we bounced around a lot during the week. We'd be one day at the training center, the next day at Station 4, the next day at Station 3, and we felt, after talking to a lot of the end users, the newer recruits that had gone through it, a lot of time was wasted driving. So I restructured it. All of week 1 will be at Station 1. All of week 2 will be at the training center, and all of week 3 will be at Station 3. So there's none of this wasted driving time, if you will. They'll be on site. They know where to report. They know how long the workday is. I've reached out to a lot of our employees, trying to pull from some of the newer employees that are subject matter experts in these specific areas of training and incorporating them into this orientation, get them bought in and help train up some of our newer probationary firefighters, because eventually those individuals that are instructing them now will be their supervisors down the road. So they have a vested interest in seeing that they're trained up accordingly, ready to hit the floor day one. All the instructors, I send out lesson plan templates to them. Have a deadline of October 1st to get all those lesson plans back to me so we can review them with each of the instructors, make sure we're capturing all the material that's needed and have been identified from past recruits that was either not included or included and not necessarily useful in that first 3 weeks, but something they can capture later in the year. So we'll sit down with each one of them, have that lesson plan dialed in for each day with the schedule, and be able to hand that to the recruits day one when they hit the floor. So they know the material that'll be being covered, where they need to report, what time they need to report. With that, we're gonna do information retention testing. So the following day after a class, they'll be asked a series of 10 questions to find out how well they retain that information the day before. And if we identify an issue, either with the way we're instructing or the way they're able to retain that information, we'll be able to address that then and there and not wait till they hit the floor on shift. So we felt that was a priority, and make sure that we're doing our part and they're also doing their part. So that's, again, starting October 16th. It'll run for 3 weeks, and it's very comprehensive, a lot of moving parts, but that plan's pretty much been finalized, just waiting on those templates for the lesson plans to come back to me, and then I'll be submitting everything to Chief Mizoulis for his final review and overview and blessing to move forward with it. Working on and almost completed a brand new 1-year probationary firefighter task book. So I know Heidi talked about the task books. Our current probationary firefighter task book was last revised in 2019, I believe. Again, talking to some of the end users, being the newer recruits that had gone through and newer individuals that had been on probation the last couple years, I wanted to identify with them what they felt was missing, what they were underprepared for, what was expected of them that maybe wasn't included in those task books, as well as some of the crews that have had a number of these probationary firefighters on their shift. So I've been meeting with the crews again to get some of their buy-in to make sure that we're capturing everything we want, and it's going to be extensive. It's not going to be easy for these 1-year probationary firefighters. There's a lot of additional requirements and expectations that are going to be placed onto them to see that they're successful and set up for success in the future, and actually feel like they earned something at the end of it. Because when they get this completed, it's going to be a monumental task for them and the crew. And my hope is that it'll be a good refresher for the crews on a lot of information that maybe we haven't trained on in the recent years. And so they're going to have an opportunity to educate themselves before presenting that information to and instruct the probationary firefighters in that task book. So again, once I get done with that, I'll send it to Chief Mizoulis for his final blessing. And then the intent is to have that done by November 1st. To be able to issue that to the new recruits when they hit the floor on November 4th. So they'll have the brand new task book completed and ready to hit the floor. The ROVA training, the recreational off-road highway vehicle training that I spoke about a couple meetings ago, is scheduled to start next week at the Verde Valley Fairgrounds. So I've been working with firefighter Jeremy Lilly, who's kind of taken the lead on that. We met with the Verde Valley Fair director, Ms. Gilboy, down in Cottonwood. Got our site set up, storage for our UTVs and trailers, so we're not having to drag them back every day. They're gonna be in a locked indoor facility for us, so they'll be there every day of the week. And again, trying to be more efficient and not as much wasted drive time moving apparatus around. So that class is scheduled for this week. We have 3 individuals going through that, and that's an instructor level course. So once those 3 individuals are certified, they'll be able to instruct all of our operational staff and meet the credentialing body, ROVA requirements to have that included on the red card for wildland deployment, as well as in-district use for backcountry rescues on those UTVs. Next week also, we have the NFPA 1403 class, which is the live fire instructor class. I'll be taking that class along with a couple other individuals to recertify as live fire instructors in anticipation of utilizing all of us during the new hire orientation when we do our live fire day, and early next year doing a battalion level live fire training at the Regional Training Center in Cottonwood. So that class is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday next week. Did all the pre-course work today. It's a lot, but it's good. And it's making sure all of us are trained up to the standards, make sure we're meeting all the rules and regulations and providing a safe environment for anybody that goes through that live fire training, with safety being paramount in that class. And finally, on the back burner, I've been working on the 1-year training plan for 2024. So the intent behind this is to have a guiding template for crews, not saying, hey, on this day you have to train on this, but a guiding template for the crews for the entire 2024 year to meet annual requirements for all the certifying bodies out there, for laws, OSHA, and standards through NFPA. So, for instance, a captain could go to the 3rd week in March, and the 3rd week of March is special ops training. They go to the special ops section, and it'll explain exactly what training is recommended for a guiding template that week. And if they follow that template, they'll meet all the mandates by the end of the year. There are what we call blackout weeks or dead weeks, where there's no training scheduled, to where if a training comes up, we can fit it in there and not disrupt the training plan for the whole year. So probably about 75% complete with that, just making sure that we're meeting all the, like I said, the laws and regulations and standards and recommendations to ensure compliance with all those. And I want to make sure all that's buttoned up before we actually finalize that. Again, I'll be giving that to the chiefs to look at, Chief Coyle as well as Ops Chief, to make sure that we're meeting the intent for our training plan for the year. But something we haven't had here before, and I think it's an excellent tool for company officers. I know I would have appreciated it as a company officer, being able to just guide down and hit check boxes on exactly what we need to do, as well as references where to find that material, and then be able to put on company level training for my crew. So that's what we've had going on in the last month.
That's all?
It's a lot.
Jordan failed to mention, well, he didn't fail to mention, he didn't know that I would appreciate this being mentioned. So we've talked a lot about retirements and hirings and everything. Well, I appreciate the work Jordan and Buzz have done to, it sounded like he mentioned a lot of classes going on to train instructors, right? And that's because all these cats that are retiring are taking their instructor credentials with them. And they made a thoughtful approach to identifying members of our organization that have expressed interest in being up-and-comers. And it's not just anybody gets to go to become an instructor. It's those that have expressed interest and through their work ethic have showed us that they're hard chargers. And this is just part of our reset, is getting a new bank of instructors in place. And so it's a lot of work, and I appreciate the work they've been putting into it.
Chief Azulis is right. A lot of the individuals, not only from the instructors training, but the individuals that'll be training these new recruits. I want to make sure we had the right people in there for the right days. And so we really tried to identify members that had strengths in EMS, and 3 instructors for 8 or 9 cadets, and that's their expertise. And we are identifying a lesson plan for that criteria to meet. So when they do hit the floor day 1, hour 2, they get a severe critical EMS call, they know what their roles and responsibilities are 2 hours into their first shift. And that was the theme behind this new hire orientation, is let's not plan them for 6 months down the road. Let's plan them for week 1. And then the task book comes into play to start planning 6 months down the road, 12 months down the road, with spot checks on information retention, presentations to their crew on case studies, and reading material that they'll be required to read. So I'm excited about it. I really am, as you can probably tell. But it is a lot of work, but I think it's good work, and there'll be a lot of value added to the agency for it.
Thank you.
Do you have any input or questions, for Chief? A couple questions I had that came to mind as you were discussing about computerizing individuals' training and records and all that. Are we also keeping on par, if not exceeding, the security measures so that we don't have what happened to us not too long ago with our response issues? But are we keeping up with that?
Yes, sir. So that was one of the considerations before we moved everything over. I did talk to Josh and Brian Espiau as far as, so ESO, and correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, you might have better knowledge, but the way it was explained to me is it's a cloud-based system. And Brian said it's about as secure as a server as anybody can get. So there was that concern. It's like, oh man, if we upload all this and something happens, what do we do? And so Brian and I talked extensively about that, about the servers that ESO has, and he felt very confident that it's as secure as possible. But I've also been reminding individuals, as you upload your training certs, keep a copy for yourself just in case, just as good practice and good measure. And then I got with the battalion chiefs, asked them to roll this, how to upload everything. We've gone through it a couple times, but we do have some new employees we probably haven't captured, but how to upload those certs into ESO with your crews. And then directed the battalion chiefs, if you have any troubles with that, please come see me and we'll walk through it together. So give them an opportunity to train their crews and get out and interface with their crews on this. I thought was a good decision and a good opportunity for them, especially being 3D.
And all this input for the operational side, are you also doing the civilian side, or does that go to perhaps Heidi on the admin for training and? For the ESO stuff, Heidi and I talked about that today, and I'll be getting with her to make sure that everybody is familiar with ESO, can access it accurately, and knows how to upload, as well as can track an issue date and an expiration date if you have a certification that expires. And that's what we currently use for a lot of our EMT paramedic certifications. And then Chris can actually pull a 90 days out expiration date. So in 90 days, you're going to expire. In 60 days, you're going to expire. And so we could do that for swift water. We could do that for ropes training. And then, as Heidi mentioned, HR has and payroll has certain certifications that do have expiration dates. We can load that in there and then be able to extract that data and send out an automated response, more or less, that, hey, in 60 days, this certification is going to expire, just a heads up. About 3 years ago, Cottonwood put on an NFPA training, and I believe it was ICS for executives. I couldn't tell you what ICS number it was, but is that something that you can look at to input for scheduling, or, because I've not seen the training come across again other than that one-time shot over in Cottonwood. And it just gave the board's point of view, and ICS, an understanding of it.
I can check with the NFA, the National Fire Academy. We're actually hosting an ISO class here in January for some of our members, but I can look and contact the state Fire Service for Excellence and see if there's any NFA classes that are coming out, and I can forward that to Chief Mazulis to get to you if you'd like.
And then lastly, that would be helpful. Okay. Not that I'm giving direction anywhere during the chief's report, but that would be helpful. And then lastly, the whole concept of what you're doing, because we're now in that, utilizing that technology that's been out there and we're putting it to use. Are we the only ones doing that? Or are we creating a model for other fire districts within a region to maybe follow suit? Or are we following the model of somebody else?
No, I can't speak to the electronic records retention. Again, I'm still trying to get my feet under me here, and I talked to Chief Mazulis. Once I get everything set and we start implementing this, I want to get out regionally and even into state and talk to other training officers
I do know for a fact that other agencies have annual training plans and have had for years, from past experience and then networking. But as far as, records retention in ESO, I would imagine they do after talking to Brian, because he had a pretty good idea and some asks of ESO where we can break out and create subfolders in that training. And we have some now, but there's not a lot available specific to us. You know, we have one for task books. So if I'm an engineer that's got a finalized captain's task book, that's uploaded into ESO now. And now I need to submit that when it comes time for testing for captain. I can extract that data and put it out. So I don't imagine it's only us, but regionally, and maybe Chief Missoula can speak to it better, but I don't think anybody else is doing that right now.
Okay, good. All right, well, thank you. A lot of work, in a short time, so don't get burned out.
Good.
Okay, Chief?
All right, let me double check. Yes, okay, it's my turn. Month of August was heavy in meetings with our partnering entities, government entities, the public, private sector stuff. And I just wanted to highlight some of the notable things that I think are moving the needle. A big part of what I'm shifting focus on is when appropriate and when available, those contacts I've made as they relate to my previous duties here at Sedona Fire. I'll loop in Jordan and Buzz and introduce and you know, discuss opportunity and hand off those contacts to those guys. And one of the big ones I was excited about this month is that Yafai College has a new director for the fire science program, and he's recently retired firefighter and very much wants to work with neighboring agencies and Yafai County agencies. And one of the things he brought to us is an opportunity that, you know, when we have somebody prepping for a captain's test or a captain's position, they have to be blue card certified internally. Well, never before have we had the opportunity to dual enroll that. So while we require it for captain testing, the college will work with us to credential that class so that our members also receive college credit. And same thing as we develop a captain's academy, if we build the lesson plan correctly, they'll allow us to get a company officer class credits at the college. So one, it's a cost reduction for the district, and two, it's a time and needs reduction for our members. So they're banging out requirements for promotion, and they can also work on a degree at the same time. So that was neat, and I was able to hand off that relationship to Buzz and Jordan, and they're gonna set sail with the college and do some really neat stuff coming up. Another piece is we may or may not have discussed our radio infrastructure upgrades in the past, and so I wanted to cover some updates on that. And it kind of, you know, there were some outside influences that pumped our brakes, and then some thoughtful approaches that pumped our brakes. But ultimately, you know, Bob's had some struggle with some of the equipment we received. He's working through that. We've also engaged in conversations internally with a company that states by the end of this week they will have real numbers to us, and those numbers I'll have available to present to the board next month. And it's much less than initially was described. So it's promising. And what I'm speaking to is it would be all the equipment needed to upgrade all of our sites to be P25 compliant, which I'm not going to pretend to be able to describe to you what that means. But I can tell you that it aligns our system to be compliant to the highest standard available, and also integrate very easily with any upgrades to dispatch or other public safety agencies in the region as they upgrade. So that will be delivered next month. And that ties into the next piece. I met with Sheriff Rhodes, Yafai County Sheriff Rhodes, 2 weeks ago, and the county has a want and will to not only assist with funding, but to regionalize a county upgrade to the communications system, and up to and including looking at trying to bring the PSAPs, you know, regional, whether it's one in Prescott or one in Prescott, you know, on the Birdie side, and then kind of hoping that some of the partnering agencies, like Sedona PD has a dispatch center, Camp Verde Marshall has a dispatch center, and the hope is to kind of merge those centers and do a shared service agreement for efficiencies, because one of the big struggles right now is, dependent on what cell phone carrier you have and where exactly you're at in the county, if you need an ambulance, your phone call may go to DPS, who then routes it to Yavapai County, who then routes it to Prescott, if you're on that side of the hill, or DPS to Yavapai County, or Yavapai County DPS to Cottonwood Center. So the system isn't ideal. So the county has recognized that they want to be a partner and be a supporter of a countywide upgrade. And so we're taking an internal, thoughtful approach. The stuff we're doing right now, we have to do to our system. Our system needs upgrading, but aligning the products we purchase and install so that they will be readily adaptable to anything the county does is another piece that we've been working on this month to make sure that that all aligns. So it's pretty exciting. Also met with the mayor and continue working on opportunities for Station 4. The big concern of the city right now is available parking for the public. And so our contractor's working on some design ideas for some different city lots that may be available so that I can present to the city, here's what we'll preserve as far as parking goes, and here's the impact of a station. And hopefully, I'm confident we can show them we're not gonna reduce that many parking spots, which may further the conversation and get us to a place where we might have some opportunities with Station 4. So that's in the works right now. The contractor's doing some different measurements, and they overlay basically a generic station design on some of the city properties to show them how many parking spots we want to eliminate. And that was one of the big takeaways. So we're working on that. I also met with, I believe you're all aware, but if you're not, the joint management agreement with Copper Canyon and Verde Valley has been voted on and is now in place. So I've been meeting with Chief Johnson about going forward with some shared services stuff. And the first one we're looking at attacking is CRR. And we identified 4 primary goals we want to work towards if we're going to do an agreement. And one is the feasibility of common code adoption throughout the Verde Valley. Second one is a common fee schedule. Third one is an appropriate sharing of resources for fire investigation and right-sizing how we do plans review and right-sizing the process. Because I personally feel we owe it to our local contractors as a region to have a process that aligns so that they don't have the Sedona rule book and the Cottonwood rule book and the Copper Canyon rule book. So that's something we're actively working on. Other than that, my time's really been spent with all of these testing processes, and I haven't had the lift Chief Coyle has had with developing a lot of the process, but I've been one of the graders in many of the pieces of the process, and it's important to me. And it's time consuming, but it's time well spent. And it's been busy. Hopefully we'll be at an appropriate staffing level across the board soon and be able to leverage those new resources for the betterment of the organization. So I'm excited about that. On to the slides. As you can see, the August call volume went down a little bit. I don't know if that was back to school or weather related, or maybe Instagram didn't post a new hike to do, so people didn't come. It depends. And our response per station is staying pretty steady. Emergency response times, our median turnout time is going down, and travel times staying pretty steady. But those are good indicators. I like seeing the turnout time trending downward. That's good, getting folks out the door. And then covering purchase orders over 10,000. As you can see, we did some IT equipment, and then our ESO, which Jordan spoke to, annual contract. Some letters of appreciation from the public. One of them, very nice, they're all very nice. One of them was very heartfelt from, Captain Wells' mother. His father passed away after a long battle with cancer, and it's standard for us to try to express some gratitude and support by sending flowers, and Chris Ahern manages that, and I thought it was very thoughtful for her to send that. Other than that, social media keeps on going. Paper media, I can't make that statement because it was in a different meeting. But as you're aware, we've been getting a lot of press, and I engaged with the paper. We are starting a monthly column. It's just, I'm hung up on the name of it, so if anybody's got a bright idea, let me know. And we've got a really good relationship with the paper right now, and they're very supportive of us, so I appreciate it. So that is, oh my gosh, I forgot the most important thing. Mr. Soto and I attended the annual Sedona Chamber Mixer breakfast, and we were awarded the Customer Service Award for Community Service Award for the Chamber. We tied with the Coffee Pot Restaurant, we being Sedona Fire District, so it was pretty neat. That is what I have.
So thank you. Any questions for the chief or any input? Review my notes. Okay. With that said, thank you all for all the work you guys done this last month. I know, and as we go along through the fiscal year, but I mean, this was a busy month. It was indicative of your report, Chief, as far as, what's going on in the training aspect. But also, we've got some financial things happening also, coming down the pipe. So we're, I always look forward to that, because I think we're gonna overcome whatever comes of it, and we usually do pretty doggone good. So thanks for all the hard work on that. The next thing on the agenda is discussion board members, fire district related activities since our last board meeting. So with that said, generally we run down from one end to the other and discuss what we did this past month, just to let the people out in our community know that we are busy. Janet, you can start us off, and we'll build as we come this way.
Yeah, we'll build, because I am never quite as busy as the other members. Doing the bill pay and, doing things as well until he feels better and gets back.
Okay, all right. Helen, anything?
Well, let's see, the usual signing checks, one-on-ones with the chief, and the retirement ceremonies, which I thought both were very well done, and really paid tribute to the people. And the other thing I will just tell you is, having just come back from Vermont and New Hampshire, when it comes to fire districts, we're on top of them, well ahead of them. We're doing great. But it was fun to see other fire districts while we were traveling around, and to know, I could always say, hey, you're not anywhere near as good as SFG.
Well, and I appreciate, after our conversation of the day, that you've been bitten by the bug, because now that she's involved in fire district, she's like, I can't not see fire stations.
I can't, the fire truck goes by, if I'm working out, there go my guys, right there. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, it gets to you.
It does get to you.
Yeah, it's in your blood.
Mm-hmm.
Scott, anything for us?
Little bit. I wasn't around much in that month, but I had experiences just like that, like yours. You travel and you see people, and of course, having been on the fire department, you see somebody and then you get to talking to them. Same way that I find you get to talking to them here. So the people, because I'm thinking, hey, the people, these people that I don't know, but the people that do know, they'll say, hey, what are you doing with the district? Well, okay, where would you like me to start? And sometimes you can get some things through to them, and sometimes you can't. But it's kind of a nice, not a game to play, but it's something to do, to say, hey, yeah, I know where I can get the information that you're asking. And then they get a big smile. I'm like, okay, can I have it yesterday? It depends on what they're planning to do. But I still feel like that's my best, contacts are the people that, you know, are in your circles, whether they're in your circles or not. You still have something to be proud of and to, educate them at the same time. That's it.
Perfect. All right, well, welcome back. Both of you.
Yeah.
As for me, it was a busy month. I had the opportunity, the honor to speak at two retirements, one for Chief Cochran and one for, Captain Mike Duran, who is now the new, as they did their walkout and retired. And Mike Duran is now the new fire chief, for the Winslow Fire District, Fire Department. Okay. And, so anxious to hear back some good things from that department, see how he's doing. Our 9/11, memorial ceremony went very well. I couldn't be happier. The speeches were right on the money. The presentation of, you know, the flag going up and down done by the fellas there, was great. I got several job well dones on that, even to a point where there was a fellow from out of the area who played bagpipes. And he came up to the chief, and I guess, and asked if he could play. And sure enough, he played several tunes on his pipes, and everybody turned their heads looking for this, because it was just out of the blue, you know, and
It was so Sedona. It was so random. I'm like, oh, I joked to him, so sir, you happen to have a set of pipes in your car? He's like, yeah, they're in my trunk. I'll go grab them. I'm like, all right.
so in his hiking boots and shorts and a t-shirt, he rattled off probably 4 or 5 different songs with his pipes. That was very good. So, but other than that, that's what I was involved with, as well as the chief on that breakfast from the Chamber of Commerce for our award. Well deserved. And so with that, that's all I had on my plate. So unless there's anything else or any comments by anybody else, Bill, anything from legal?
We're working on the tower agreement, modified it a little bit to accommodate some birds of prey requirements that are imposed by the feds, and it'll be done soon.
Is there any change of personnel as far as your counterpart on that side, or is it the same person? As far as legal?
No,
Same guy, okay. Gotcha. Good luck. Okay, with that said, unless there's anything else from anybody else, thank you very much for all the hard work and all the input we had for tonight. Drive safe. This meeting is now adjourned.
I got Mr. Pancakes.
Yeah, me too.